Hello. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Great. Happy Friday.
Happy
Welcome,
Friday.
everyone. Today is Free Photo Tip Fridays, and we are coming to you. I'm here in Orlando. Alicia's coming to you from
Yeah.
and we are excited today to talk about the word possibility. And what does possibility mean to us as photographers, as storytellers? And how can we use this word possibility to think about the whole process, the whole journey of photography? So if you joined us on Wednesday, you know that we did something a little bit different with Wednesday Wisdom with this word. And I kind of interviewed Alicia, if you will. I kind of picked her brain a little bit about how she feels like she's changed her perspective on what's possible in her life. So I want to do that here. And obviously we're going to focus on that transition into becoming a photographer, right? And what that feels like. So this is the, excuse my puppy.
Yeah.
This is the question that I feel like is motivating and can be inspiring for us all to kind of think about this word possibility a little bit differently. And the question is, what to you, Alicia, used to feel impossible, but now feels totally possible and real, and you're just in it and you feel totally confident with it?
With all my education through college and being behind the camera but not really knowing it, it was very frustrating to be in that space of, I got a creative eye, I know the possibilities here, possibilities, but for some reason I felt stuck. I can't remember how many years ago this was. I'd say 2014.
Yeah.
And I was always picking it up. I was practicing, doing stuff, but I never was doing the right things. I never knew my camera and the potential that I had, technically with it. I was just frustrated. And I played it safe all the time in auto mode or not knowing manual. So for the longest time, I just felt frustrated and stuck.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a fun time in my life, knowing the potential that
so it's funny because like in your head, you knew what was possible. You had this creative eye, right?
Yeah.
What felt impossible was, how do you do it, know how to do it? And I
didn't know. No matter how many tutorials and things I did, people that I worked with to try and collaborate with to understand the camera, no one was patient enough to help me. So I really felt I needed to do it on my own. And once I went out on my own and I
felt the same way too.
You were, at least we had a good 10 days together in order to, you were patient with mentoring me. We went on a road trip together in 2015 spontaneously, and Danielle really, really helped me understand my camera technically.
I felt like it was like a coaching. It wasn't, I didn't mean for it to be, I didn't even know it was going to be that way. I don't even remember if I knew if you were into photography the way that I was. I knew
I was living the 9 to 5 life. I was living that 9 to 5 life in the grind, and I would try and do some photography on the side, but never good. I never felt good enough. Because I didn't know. I didn't know how to creatively control my.
Well, and there's that feeling of like, I know the settings, right? But then it's that feeling when it becomes almost second nature or automatic, that you know what you want when, and you're already in that mode. You're already thinking 10 steps ahead, right? So there's all these layers to what's possible.
I think that's that impossible. It felt impossible. It felt, all right, I felt as if every scenario needed certain settings, or if I was in this scenario, what should I set my camera to? If I was in this one, how should it be different?
Didn't you feel like you had to memorize things? Like you were
Yeah,
like, you need to know these numbers. It's like,
I know. The numbers drove me nuts. I've never been mathematical either. So shutter speed really drove me insane. Even aperture at times. Like I was like, what is this? I don't understand why it's saying f-stop and it's called aperture. Like it drove me insane. I was so frustrated.
yeah,
And I think it was learn once I, even after that road trip with you, I still needed time to understand,
absolutely.
practice,
Patience.
balance those settings
Yeah,
together and figure out how they work together and how the camera manipulated them. So
yeah,
it takes time, it takes patience and practice and a lot of
yeah.
mistakes
Different
and failures,
possibilities.
you know, and
All those moments of practice though, right? And even just it might have been spontaneous, but in hindsight it was perfect. Being immersed in it for 10 days and just being like, okay, I'm just going to focus and do this and try and understand it. Like that takes time and patience, and that's a part of creating that possibility. But
yeah,
you have to want to go there, right? So every time we pick up the camera, I just talked about this in a private lesson yesterday. She's like, I took a class with you last year. I don't know if you remember me, but I feel bad because I haven't picked up my camera and I don't feel inspired. She's like, and that's why I came to do a private lesson, because I want to get like kind of like a little boot camp and this inspirational kick.
yeah,
And so I was explaining to her, like, every moment is a possibility. Leave your camera out. Leave it on the counter. She has triplets. So I was like, okay, leave it on a high counter. But the idea that any moment can be a chance to practice or learn. And even when you screw up and make mistakes, taking the time to look at those all create more possibility for you to get better, faster. I mean,
yeah,
I want you to show, do you have a few of the photos from that road trip?
yeah,
Because I do remember there were some moments when I was like, okay, listen, this is what you have to understand, right?
yeah,
So if you have a few, let's show them and kind of
yeah.
talk through how you changed what you saw and made something else possible in that shot.
So Danielle decided to you were actually shooting the Milky Way at this point. And
Yeah.
then we were in the middle of Arizona. She stopped off at the side of the road. I was like, what are we doing? I don't know where the hell we are. Cars flying by. I mean, it was few and far between, but big trucks. And I was like, okay, let's just do it, even though I have some fear about obviously being on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of it was probably about midnight. We didn't even know where we were sleeping yet. But I was not into night photography until really this, this trip and this moment. And, we got our tripods out and I didn't know what I was doing. I remember having her talk me through it. And I mean, it's hard to talk through the whole thing, but
No, but I even remember
with you, and why I would have to ask myself, why am I setting this
yeah.
way? Or,
I even remember thinking, shoot, I don't know. I don't know if this is right. And I don't know if you have the settings on these shots, but I remember thinking, I don't know what the ISO should be because it's nighttime. It's pitch black.
Right.
You probably need a high ISO, right? And mind you, guys, we were wanting to get those stars. But what happened was, and we ended up getting them in all different kinds of ways. But this shot, I remember so well because you have no idea what the possibility is of leaving your shutter open for 10 seconds trying to catch the stars, and a semi truck starts flying by you.
I had no idea about even light trails with this semi truck and the lights on the cars and how it would look on the photo. Like it blew my mind. I was like, what? Like this is so cool. And Danielle knew about this. So I was like,
I didn't know that a truck would go by at that moment, right? So here's where like being in the moment and going, okay, there's no perfect formula. You don't have to memorize numbers. It's all about asking yourself why first. Everyone knows our first question is, why do I want to pick up the camera? Well, in our case, it was the stars in the Milky Way, and we could see the Big Dipper. It was crazy. It was just
Yeah.
right there. So we have to always understand that camera sees like our eyes, but it does see differently. And so for us, 90% of the time being on the side of that road, it was pitch black. We could barely see each other walking around the car. I remember running into the car and being like, where'd I put my tripod? Like,
How do you even focus? You know what I mean? I didn't even know how to focus on the sky or anything at this point. And you taught me about, setting it manually to infinity. And so every little nook and cranny of how to take certain shots, I mean, I now know, but it doesn't mean it has to be that way. It's play with it and see what works.
And you don't know what's going to add to your shot. This shot ended up being too dark to get all the stars we wanted. We didn't pick the perfect settings, but what it did create was this moment we couldn't have expected where a big semi truck went by. And guys, do you see how far away he is? Those are lights coming over the hill in the distance. That truck is the same truck creating the light trails that are right next to you on the right side of the picture. This is a 30-second shutter speed, or 10-second. It's the car
probably about 20 something. Yeah.
Yeah. So you never know. And if you can start by just building upon your why, right? And not feeling like you need to memorize a setting, but just being like, okay, if my why has to do with the stars, what do we know? It's dark. I know I know I need help from my light and ISO, and I know I need a long shutter. We had no idea what the long shutter should be. We just started clicking and playing. And if you haven't already, guys, and you aren't following us on Instagram, you have to go read this story that Alicia wrote today. She's kind of taken over and sharing her story more on our Instagram before she comes down for Warrior Weekend. And she talks about how you have to learn to play, because that's when you play, you can screw up. There's no pressure. And then you end up creating possibilities that you never would have thought of before, while you're also learning from what you're capturing and how that camera is bringing in that light. So this was an awesome moment, and it felt like, whew, that's what it felt like, guys, standing there. It felt like, oh my God, this car is like flying by us.
The energy of it was crazy. Well, I didn't even know if it was going to have like a still, because the tripod was shaking.
I know. We didn't know if we would even get it sharp enough.
Yeah.
But even more so, I love that we still captured the Big Dipper.
Yeah, it was a great moment of possibility, and
I love how
growing from it.
You have these lines, the Dipper's going this way, the car lines are going this way, the truck lines. So cool shot. What else do you have?
This is another one from that. Oh, I gotta close it. Another one from that trip. Well, we have a couple, but so panoramic. I didn't know how to shoot a panoramic photo until Danielle showed me. And this is a really funny experience. This is Monument Valley. If you've ever heard of it, it's John Wayne Valley out in, I believe it's Arizona. Was it? No, that was Utah. And we were actually coming from Arizona, from that shoot that night, I believe, on the side of the road. And Danielle just pulled up to this hotel in the middle of the desert and said, I'm going to get a room. And this hotel books out, I'd say, a year in advance, maybe more.
Yeah.
And we got a room for sure. She got us a room. It didn't have a view. It was called The View Hotel. It didn't have a view. But we were exhausted and we just needed a shower and to rest. But I got up at the ass crack of dawn, really. You can see the sun coming up, and I just had to go and see this moment. Danielle was still sleeping, but because she had showed me how to do a panoramic shot, I was like, I got this, you know? So I sat there, enjoyed the peaceful moment, and shot this beautiful panoramic shot of the sun rising, you know, above Monument Valley. And it was a beautiful moment, but this is something that I didn't know how to do, and the
We're
possibility.
gonna, and we're gonna do this Warrior Weekend. We're gonna talk about this, guys.
Yeah.
There's two parts to this. There's uh, planning and setting up a series of images, and part two is blending them together in post-production program like Lightroom. You guys that know us know that's one of our big classes that is like the icing on the cake. It brings our photography together, the editing, organizing, but even deeper into it is creating fun stuff like HDR and panoramic photography. So yeah,
Sure.
I'm sad I missed this sunrise.
I
Do you
know.
know, I've been here twice now, and both times missed the perfect sunset and sunrise in the most
Oh
gorgeous.
no, gotta go back.
Now I got to go back.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's
If
awesome.
you've never been, this place is indescribable, and I went out and I just shot as much as I could. You know, in the morning there it was hot, but
Yeah.
it was worth it. And
If you guys want to learn more about panoramic photography, check out that Warrior Weekend on the website.
yeah.
But it's actually a very easy first step. It's about, look what she's looking at. Look what's in the middle of her frame, right? You got to figure out what you want in the center before you plan out a panoramic shot. So what makes this shot such a cool perspective and view that she may not have seen before is that when you walk out to these balconies, what's infamous is those three pillars that you see first, and the first pillar you see is the one with the sun coming up over it. So her eyes went, God, that's beautiful, right? But what makes this place so amazing is how our peripherals, you have so much incredible landscape going on even in the peripherals. So a panoramic, this is a perfect place to take a panoramic shot where you get what your real human experience feels like, to see what's right in front of you, that perfect view in the middle, and everything in your peripherals as well. So it's a great balanced shot. I love it. And that place is amazing.
It really is. I mean, we had so many great opportunities on that trip that just came out of nowhere. I mean, wild horses on the sides of the road. Like, I can't even comprehend, you know.
Well, and
I'm very grateful for it.
I am too, and I'm grateful that you came on that trip and entrusted me with like not having a clue and making sure we get home safe. But guys, those of you who don't know, that's exactly where my entire intention and mission behind Live Wonderful came from, was this idea that I can create a spontaneous life and still find magic in everyday moments, and have control over them at the same time. So it's about letting go and being creatively in control of your life, your experiences, where and when you decide to travel, when you want to pick up your camera, why you want to capture these stories. And I never knew half the time, like, what am I doing here? Why am I capturing this picture? But every single time it was the camera that led me on this new possibility, right? This new way of seeing things. And it became the most magical experience. And to share that with someone else who I didn't expect to share it with, and now what it's led to, is just awesome, because this trip would never been, I mean, I had a great time on trips by myself and with other people, but doing it with you and you being in the place where you wanted to learn and you were like, let's
Excited.
Yeah,
I was excited. I was inspired by all your travels, and how free, in a way, mind and everything else you were living. And I wanted to get into that headspace, pick up that camera, and feel so inspired to do so. And I still do. These pictures bring back such great energy, and I'd love to do it again. Like, book
Yeah.
my trip out west. Like I
Yes.
definitely would do
I'll
it in a
I'll
heartbeat.
go I'll go anywhere at this point.
Yeah, I know, for real. The only other one that I grabbed, which we have thousands, it feels like. She also taught me how to organize my photos and stuff on this road trip as well, because we had endless amounts of photos. But this was
Yeah.
another spontaneous moment where we're driving in our little, what did you have? The Volkswagen?
No, Mini Cooper
Mini
convertible.
Cooper, yes, Mini Cooper, convertible. And I didn't know how to drive stick shift, so she was honestly driving almost the whole time, which is why she was so tired. I would take control of the camera and like stand up and jump out, you know what I mean? As she
Lisa, take this picture. Take this picture.
takes this picture, I'm like, okay. So I had to do things on the spot right away. And this actually happened very quickly. Through this, it looks huge. It looks larger than life, but it was a very tiny little tunnel. And it was fun to capture. We saw a moment and wanted to capture it.
I remember we were trying to, I swore we were going to get to Sedona, Arizona by this time the sunset that day. And I'll remember this town. It's called Williams, Arizona. And
wow.
It's about 20 miles west, right? We were driving east. And I remember thinking, shit, we are not going to make it all the way to the Sedona Mountains for sunset.
Yeah.
We wanted to shoot the sunset. And guys, we took 10 days and drove like 1,500 miles. So we did not have time to like lollygag. We were all about finding cool spots from the road and like just moving along. So it wasn't like we could wake up the next day and wait for the next sunset. So
No.
for me, it was like, where can we stop right now and find just any spot to take in the moment and enjoy the sunset and maybe get a great angle for a picture, right? Because it was just the sunsets out west are so golden and glowy. And so we didn't know what we were pulling off from. We just pulled off and we found this little tunnel. And so as I slowly came up, I could see that perspective of feeling pulled in, but the sun feeling like it was coming out at you. And that was
I was trying to capture what was in Danielle's head, but then I saw it as soon as I looked through my viewfinder. I was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, that was a great moment too. So again, like all moments hold a possibility with that camera. It really is about seeing life, seeing the moment, seeing light, because we all know that's what it's all about. Seeing it differently. So when you guys are out there shooting, and I'll bring us back up. When you guys are out there shooting, and you don't feel inspired or you're not sure what you want to pick up, just take a picture that you already know you know how to take. And then change your settings a little bit. We're going to dive into this even more in Warrior Weekend. And wait, it's next weekend. Alicia's going to be here next week. And then we have Warrior Weekend coming up on the 29th and 30th. And our advanced photography class, if you already know how to get off auto and you're playing in manual mode, the advanced photography class is going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to dive into what it means to create more possibilities with your photos by focusing on how to take really great portraits. What's the difference in a good portrait versus just a snapshot of a person? And how to create HDR images. HDR stands for high dynamic range. So it's about creating images that make us look more like how we see the world. And then panoramic shots, like Alicia said, we're going to dive into those more too and talk about how do we create and blend panoramics and HDR in Lightroom. So if you guys want to learn more about the Warrior Weekend, Alicia, will you type the URL into the chat box? It's livewonderful.com/Warrior Weekend. And I'll give you guys a hint. If you want to get $20 off your classes, go watch our free class. We actually have a free photography class out there now. You can find that at livewonderful.com/free class. in there, you'll find a coupon code to get some discounts on Warrior Weekend. But even more so, just use it as another resource to learn a bit more about your camera. In the free photography class, we're teaching you about priority modes and the basics of exposure, diving back into those fundamentals of how do we see light and how can we, by looking at light a little differently, start to see our world differently, find new possibilities. So check out those classes. And Alicia, I'm so excited. We will see you here next week.
So excited.
Next time you see her, guys and girls, she's going to be sitting right here in the studio.
It's all about fundamentals. It's all about the basics, you know, and I can't express enough that I think I was like thinking too much into it back then. And this is why Danielle and I have created these classes to simplify it. It gotta be simple.
You're right. And you know, some of the best photographers even say that, and some of the best photographs that have won awards, the reason they are so impactful is because they have simplified and removed all of that, you know, difficult or over the top stuff. And so when we just start to remember the fundamentals of how the camera works, how it works with light, how it sees light differently than our eyes do, we can start to have those moments where we're like, I already know when I see this, I know what it's going to look like in the camera. So come and join us next week with Alicia right here in the studio. Thanks, everyone, and have an awesome weekend. Happy Friday. Get your cameras out. Go have some fun. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for always being here with us. We love having you guys. Bye.